Hello and welcome to The Point. This morning, the BJP released its manifesto. It's a 42-page document that covers a range of subjects from the economy to the Ram Mandir, from minorities to labour law reform. So tonight, we shall devote the entire programme to one critical question. Is the BJP manifesto a credible roadmap for securing India's future, with, of course, a few surprising and welcome elements? Or is it disappointing and even at times vague and vacuous? Since the economy is undoubtedly the single biggest challenge facing the government, we shall first concentrate on how the BJP plans to tackle this problem and ask, does it have the right solutions? My guests are former Chief Economic Advisor Arvind Virmani, the former editor of The Hindu Siddharth Varadarajan, the well-known CEO, author and columnist Gurcharan Das, the chairman of APCA Badshah Sen, and BJP spokesperson Prakash Javadekar. Let me start, Mr. Gurcharan Das, with you, and let me start by asking you for your overall impression of the BJP manifesto.
Well, you know, if you ask me, the truth is that it's a pretty boring document as a whole. It lacks the sharpness of Modi's focused attempt to raise economic growth, to create jobs, and to create skills in the economy so that the country can harvest a demographic dividend. You know, it's no wonder it's been scripted, looks like, by a committee of bureaucrats.
Okay.
And obviously the leader of this committee was a person who maybe shouldn't be in politics anymore.
Prakash Javadekar, one of the things, let me stop you there. I'll come back to you in a moment's time, Mr. Gurcharan Das. Prakash Javadekar, one of the things that stands out in the manifesto, and it's a general point, I'll come to specifics a little later, is that the manifesto talks about something called the neo-middle class. And this is defined by you as those who have risen from the category of poor and are yet to stabilize in the middle class. To my ears, that sounds like a concept you've borrowed straight from Rahul Gandhi.
No, I really don't think. If Congress wants to call copycat, then they can't criticize this, because they can't criticize their own manifesto. The issue is the country's problems remain the same, so every party will be speaking about it. The two problems and our manifesto rest on exactly on the premise of what Gurcharan Das expects. Though he may find there are many other items also, but the main thrust is on job creation through large public and private investment, including FDI.
But just a moment, Before Mr. Javadekar, I'll come to all of those, but first answer my question. How is it that you have come up with the same concept that Rahul Gandhi has been talking about, and it's not something he began talking about yesterday, he's been talking about it for at least the last 5-6 months, certainly since his January speech at the AICC. How is it that you've come up with the same concept?
No, the issue is very clearly that the suffering class is this class. You can call it anything. The issue is those who are technically above the poverty line but suffer because of the Congress economic policies, anti-people policies, which has resulted into an unabated inflation. We want to address their concerns, and Modi has very clearly said
so does Rahul Gandhi. This is the point.
Poor will go.
This is the point I'm making, that you're doing the same thing Rahul Gandhi has been talking about. Are you not a little embarrassed? After all, he doesn't have a copyright on the concept, but usually political parties steer away from copying each other.
See, no, in our country, when the Congress has reduced the country to a very a suffering class in all sections, the class which is suffering most, the poor, and just above the poverty line technically, but they are also poor. And we are talking about that poor also. Also, we are talking about many other things.
Just a moment. So I'll come to your other things in a moment's time. Let's stick to one subject at a time. And at the moment, the subject we're talking about is my claim that you borrowed a concept that Rahul Gandhi first spoke about in January. And I'm simply asking whether it's embarrassing. Siddharth Varadarajan, the concept is that of the neo-middle class. And it's defined. Just a moment, Mr. Javadekar, I'll come back to you. Let me bring in someone else and I'll come back to you. The concept, Siddharth Varadarajan, is defined as those who have risen from the category of poor and are yet to stabilize in the middle class. Do you find it strange that the BJP is echoing not just the concept but the language of Rahul Gandhi, or is it something that's quite understandable because after all, he doesn't have a copyright on it?
Absolutely. I think Rahul Gandhi is echoing something that social scientists have been talking about, and it doesn't surprise me that those ideas find an echo in the BJP's manifesto. I mean, a lot of it is a rehash of ideas that were in earlier BJP manifestos or concepts that have been knocking about in political discourse for the last 2 or 3 years. So I don't think BJP needs to be ashamed or worried about the fact that something that is there in the manifesto has been talked about earlier by somebody like Rahul Gandhi. I don't think it's an embarrassment. Parties learn from each other, they borrow from each other.
Okay.
I don't think they need to be ashamed about it.
Gentlemen, let's then move away from that general point of copying to more specific details about this manifesto. And let's start, Mr. Virmani, with the economy. Speaking about economic growth, the manifesto simply says we will find out solutions which are effective in the short run and lasting in the long run. Full stop, that's all. And then speaking on fiscal discipline, it simply talks about strict implementation without in any way setting a specific fiscal deficit target, leave aside a deadline for achieving it. Are you disappointed by that level of vagueness and the absence of specifics?
So very quickly, before coming to this issue, incidentally, I wrote about the new middle class 12 months ago in the Indian Express.
So they're
but
copying you, not even,
well,
not even Rahul Gandhi.
No, nobody is copying.
The credit is yours. Okay.
But I didn't use, I used the word new middle class actually.
But come back
anyway,
now, come back
so
to these.
growth and fiscal deficit. You know, one of the points I have made in whatever I have written on what the next government should do when it comes into power is that growth and macroeconomics are very complicated things. So there's two issues which arise. One, a lot of people comment on growth and macro as if they are experts. I'm afraid it's much more complicated than that.
Can I stop you there? I'm not talking about how it should be commented on. I'm asking you a specific
I know,
question.
but it's relevant.
The silence here.
The next part. So the question is, there have already been statements that all you need to do is to improve governance and you'll get back to high growth. Well, you can get back to something like 5.5 to 6% by improving governance, but to take it more than that, you need to do much more.
Forgive me. I need to interrupt you because it's a specific question I want to put.
So, it is better...
Let me interrupt you.
Yeah.
I want you to comment on something very specific. All this manifesto says about growth is one sentence. We will find out solutions which are effective in the short run and lasting in the long run. Is that sufficient?
My bottom line is, it is better to not say too much than to say things which are wrong. There are all kinds of views out there, and they are opposing views. To pick one of those which is wrong would be worse than not speaking about it. But I admit that, you know, that one line is a bit too cryptic, if that's your point.
Not only is it cryptic, but on fiscal discipline, all they say is they'll have strict implementation of discipline, but they don't set a fiscal deficit target, and they are completely silent about when it will be achieved. Now again, is that just too vague and too meaningless to be almost trite?
Well, it is, it's not giving you any indication, if that's your point.
So are you disappointed by that?
Yes and no, as I said, because having seen manifestos from inside the government, what is written in a manifesto of a governing party becomes almost like a lakir ka fakir. So I would much rather not have something which is wrong than to have a whole lot of stuff in there.
Gurcharan Das, let me put that argument to you. Mr. Virmani says he'd rather have silence than details that turn out to be wrong and end up becoming what he calls a lakir ka fakir. Now, when you talk about subsidies, the manifesto is completely silent about them, absolutely. And there's nothing at all in the BJP manifesto about petrol, diesel, kerosene and LPG subsidies, and any economist will tell you that those are critical issues for the new government to grapple with. Does the silence worry you?
Yeah,
or do you take the Virmani line that silence is better than a mistake?
Yeah, no, I think what this manifesto lacks is focus. It's got a kitchen sink and everything else besides it. And it's a disappointment after listening to the very sharp vision that Modi has been selling to the country, and it needed, as you say about growth, it needed very specific steps that we can take. Now, they are there. If you read them, if you read from here, there, you'll pick up those things. But since growth is such a priority for our country, I would have expected much greater clarity on growth. Similarly, as you said, fiscal discipline. Similarly, I would have had a lot more ideas on skills training, which will be so important. I mean, I missed the statement on labor reforms, labor law reforms.
I'll come to labor reforms in a moment's time. But I want to just quickly sum up on the silences on fiscal deficit, the silences on growth, the complete and utter silence on subsidy. You're saying you're disappointed. Give me a yes or no.
Well, I'm disappointed.
All right. Now, the other thing, Badshah Sen, that stands out is the way this manifesto treats inflation. On the one hand, it says that they will set up a price stabilization fund. But then, if you look under agriculture, the manifesto commits the BJP to ensuring a minimum 50% profit over the cost of production. Yes. Now, that surely means that the minimum support price is going to shoot up fairly considerably. And if that happens, far from stabilizing inflation, you're going to kick up inflation. So do you think on inflation, they're actually contradicting themselves?
Yes. You see, I think this manifesto is like the proverbial curate's egg, you know. It's a bit of bad, it's a bit of, it's partly good and partly bad. But I really don't know how it was put together. There are visions of Modi in there. There is his vision statement, it's there. They talk about social security measures, they talk about food security measures. They don't tell you how they're going to pay for those. They don't tell you how they're going to control a fiscal deficit when you've got food security being guaranteed, when you've got, as you said, agricultural prices being hiked up.
Too many ideas, often contradicting themselves, and too little detail, all in depth.
Yes, exactly.
Let me put that to you, Mr. Javadekar. The manifesto is thought, when it comes to economic growth, to be vague. When it comes to subsidies, it's said to be silent. When it comes to inflation, it's believed to be contradictory. How do you defend those bits?
You are discussing BJP manifesto, and on this panel, I am the only BJP man. So how many seconds you are giving me? First tell me.
As long as you want, but you can't take forever.
So no, I don't. I always speak very precise. The thing is, manifesto is the roadmap. It is not a budget. Let us understand. Budget will give that specifics, what you want every year. But more importantly, government will decide the agenda for governance. And as you know, that we as BJP have declared our manifesto. Every party in India has their own manifesto. And then when we form the government, we create the document called Agenda for Governance. So, let me tell you, it is not the budget speech. So, it gives the ideas on which BJP wants to bring and revive the economy.
Okay.
And the main idea is not to make people dole dependent, but make people self-sufficient with education and skilling. Let me
stop you there. I want to put your answer to Mr. Virmani.
Opportunities. That is the thing.
Let me put that answer to Mr. Virmani and ask him as an economist whether he's satisfied with this idea that Mr. Javadekar says that this is a roadmap, not a budget. And because it's a roadmap, it doesn't have to be more specific. It needs to simply suggest broad direction without giving further indication of how you'll get to the destination. Does that satisfy?
There are two ways to write manifestos. The common way in India for the last 50 years that I have seen, at least, I've not seen all 50, I was too young earlier, but what I usually find is a laundry list of things. Every manifesto has things which it addresses.
There's a laundry list here too.
But it addresses to individual vested interests and groups. The other way to do it is to have priorities, emphasis and approach. So what are the priorities and emphasis in this? There are two things which stand up. You didn't ask me what I thought were the good parts. We can come to the bad parts. There's never everything, like you said, is not good. But the good part is the change, in my view, in the emphasis from a rights approach, which has been there, to a development approach. That's one. And secondly, I think underlying all this is a pragmatic rather than an ideological approach. That is, solve the problems, don't worry about the ideology. And I have examples of that if you want them.
But does that,
So,
can I interrupt? Are you therefore saying that these 2 points mean that the roadmap, which suggests direction without giving clear ideas of how you get to the destination, is sufficient for you?
I don't think it is complete, but as I said before, there are some things which are spelled out a little more carefully. One can object. In fact, your previous point, I have one of the serious reservations
Let me bring it
are on that agriculture.
I'll come back to that in a moment's time. I haven't got to agriculture yet, so give me a second to get
No,
there.
inflation and food.
Siddharth Varadarajan, one of the interesting things that this manifesto does do, and this is an area actually where it is quite outspoken, is when the manifesto talks about the BJP's intention to develop labor-intensive manufacturing, it specifically talks about reviewing labor laws which are outdated and complicated. And that's a subject that, in fact, political parties shy away from. But the BJP says it up front. And to your mind, does this suggest that the Industrial Disputes Act, which prohibits a hire and fire policy for companies that employ over 100, could now be reviewed?
Well, first of all, this point is there in the Congress manifesto too, and I think by itself...
No, forgive me, I have to correct you. I have to correct you. The Congress does not talk about labor law reform, review, leave aside reform. I've checked it out.
No, it does. It does. But I mean, I will. We can set that aside. This is a big red herring because the fact of the matter is that you have contract labor, which has become the norm in industry after industry, where for all practical purposes, the biggest companies engage in a virtual hire and fire. So many government employees of government PSUs are taken on contract basis, and you know, you have a hire and fire. So this is part of the gripe that industry engages in, and it doesn't surprise me that the BJP would endorse this idea of labor reform. I'm not sure what exactly it would mean, but just to come back to the central issue, you see, the BJP had an enormous amount of time to prepare a manifesto to put teeth into the promise that it is the party that is going to restore growth to a high rate. This is a party that's going to take care of providing jobs for the huge number of young people who are entering the labor market. It has economists like Vivek Debroy, Rajiv Kumar, various other people who have been advising it. And if at the end of this entire process, on the day that polling starts, all it comes up with is a line which lacks any great specifics about how to do things, and is also full of contradictions. You know, for example, it talks about the need for labor-intensive employment, and it talks about footwear, whereas the footwear industry, you know, around the world is becoming increasingly automated. So there's all kinds of labor problems. But I have a question for Mr. Gurcharan Das. That he wrote
this is not. Forgive me. This is not a time when you and Mr. Gurcharan Das should be questioning each other. It's not Mr. Gurcharan Das's views that are going to be under question. It's Mr. Javdekar's manifesto. Let's stick to that, or we lose all focus altogether. Mr. Javdekar, clarify for me whether we are over-interpreting your 2 references to labor laws. First of all, under labor law itself, and there's a section on that, you talk about reviewing labor laws which are outdated and complicated, and separately under manufacturing, you talk about labor law reform, not review but reform. So do you really intend to tackle the Industrial Disputes Act?
I'll tell you, the Contract Labor Act, the name itself is Prohibition and Abolition of Contract Labor Practices, and it has actually perpetuated. People are working as a contract labor for 15 years in even PSUs, in defense departments. So this is, and we have said specifically that we want to give more security to unorganized labor. What we mean is pro-labor and pro-productivity. Reforms.
But just a moment. Hang on a moment. So just a moment. When you talk about labor law reform, you're not talking about anything that comes close to hire and fire. You're talking about pro-labor reforms. In other words, possibly making the laws more stringent rather than more flexible. Have I understood you correctly?
No. Why you say so? No.
I'm asking you. I'm not saying so. Give me an answer.
That is what I'm saying. The answer is very clear that the Contract Labor Act needs review. There are many other acts, Industrial Dispute Act, where you don't get result. Management is also harassed and labor is also harassed. Unions are fighting for 10 years.
Just a moment. I'm going to stop you there. I'm going to stop you there because Bacha said, I want to bring you in at this point. You see, this talk of labor law reform came in specifically in the context of developing manufacturing industry.
Yes.
Therefore, the thought that comes to everyone's mind is that you're talking about flexibility. But what Mr. Javadekar is suggesting is actually pro-labor reforms which suggest tightening.
And there's too much flexibility, he seems to suggest, in the sense that he wants to tighten the law and he wants to protect contract labor, as he calls them, give them more security of tenure.
So does that disappoint you?
I'm not surprised. I mean, in an election manifesto, you can't tell large numbers of voters that we're going to come and chuck you out of your job.
So you think they could still do it without saying
yeah, that's why manifestos are not necessarily taken seriously.
Mr. Virmani, as an economist, can you create a manufacturing hub, a concept on which the BJP lays a lot of weight, without bringing in greater flexibility to labor hiring?
See, if your main focus is job creation, I would say 80% of the economists who worked on issues of labor laws and jobs say you will not get labor-intensive manufacturing unless you make exit more flexible. Exit. You know, this hiring and firing is too much. Exit. Exit. You have currently, it has to go to state governments. How you exactly modify them is something to be thought through carefully, by decentralizing it, by putting it to the states, by changing.
But what you're saying is this is a bullet that must be bitten if they're serious about delivering a manufacturing hub.
No, not a hub. What I'm saying is, if you want jobs to be created in manufacturing,
you have to bite this bullet.
Then you have to do it. You may still create a hub and still get some manufacturing, but you won't get labor intensive. You won't get the industries which are going away from China and shifting to Vietnam and Bangladesh to shift here.
Mr. Gurcharan, another area where the manifesto lays a lot of emphasis is what it calls rationalizing and simplifying tax regimes, creating what it calls a non-adversarial, conducive tax environment. But once again, there are absolutely no details, not even an illustrative example of the sort of tax that should be simplified. Do you think that's understandable? Or do you think, once again, it suggests that this document is big on intent, low on details, and therefore unconvincing?
Yeah, and I think that here their intent is right. The problem, they could have mentioned things like retrospective taxes are a bad thing to do. The Congress manifesto actually confessed to that. And so we could have had the notion of the way GAR was implemented very badly. The way the income tax officer treats an assessee is deplorable. These are things which this manifesto does mention, and I think that's a good thing. That's a good thing. I think that one of the what gives India a very bad name is the way the income tax office, tax treats people.
Let me go back to Mr. Javadekar, because we're coming to the end of this part where we're talking about the BJP's economic policies as promised in that manifesto. Other than Mr. Virmani, who feels that your silence leaves you room to actually do things and you're not committing yourself to mistakes which would make a Lakir ka Fakir problem, there is a sense of disappointment from Mr. Gurcharan Das and from my friend Badshah Sen, most articulated perhaps by Badshah and Gurcharan. Do you feel that perhaps you should have had more specific details so that people believe it's not just intent, but you actually know in concrete terms what you propose to do?
See, there are two ways to look at the manifesto. There are some manifestos telling that we'll give laptop, we'll give pressure cooker, we'll give 2 bulbs free and many things like that. We have not gone to that level, because we don't think that's a good way. We have said that we want to give people a life of dignity based on job creation through large investments. So that's the theme of the whole manifesto. And more importantly, when I say labor laws outdated which are being reformed, our taxation reform is absolutely clear, because it is not the single document which comes before the public. Our leader is giving his ideas every day. Our party has umpteen times through our economic resolutions we have made a position
I'll
clear.
accept that as an answer. Don't just take the manifesto on its own. Read it alongside Mr. Modi's speeches, and perhaps you're also adding, without saying so, Mr. Modi's speeches and what he says at rallies is a lot more important than what Dr. Joshi put into the manifesto on his behalf. We're going to take a break at that point. When we come back, we're going to talk about the BJP's plans to change India's politics, and in particular, what it offers the minorities. And here, wait for it, there could be some very pleasant surprises. The details this time round are full of specific promise that might be very surprising and also very welcome. Join me in a moment's time to find out precisely what I'm talking about.